Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Equipcast. My name is Jim Jansen, and we flipped the script today. Today, I go on the other side of the microphone, and I sit down with my lovely wife, Kim. First time on the podcast. We talk about how to reach young moms. I know for many of you, if you are a young mom or you work in any sort of a ministry setting in a parish, how do you connect with young, busy moms? Well, we talked today about some really simple ideas about how to connect with young moms, how to get them connected to each other, and how to create a space for them to grow and learn about their faith. It's a lot of fun. Moms are the heart of our families. And if you want to engage more families, begin with engaging young moms. Really fun for Kim and I to sit down together, tell some stories of some of the things that we did, some of our creative efforts to reach out to young moms. So you're going to love today's conversation. Take a listen.
Welcome to the Equipcast for the Archdiocese of Omaha. Designed to help leaders to transform their cultures, to embody the pastoral vision, to be one church, encountering Jesus, equipping disciples, and living mercy.
Hello, everyone. This is Jody Phillips, and I am your temporary host of the Equipcast. I am joined today by your regular host, Jim Jansen, and his lovely wife, Kim Jansen. And we are going to be talking today about just some of the ways that they have found to enter in more deeply into family life and evangelization through the family. And yeah, just Kim's got some beautiful stories to tell us. So, Kim, I'd like to start the Equipcast by having you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey of faith.
Thanks, Jody. Thanks for having me. Yeah. I am excited to be here today, although I am a writer by trade, not a speaker. So, but I'm excited to be here. And I really encountered Jesus for the first time in a personal way at an evangelical summer camp called Pine Cove Ranch in East Texas. And I was in early high school. And I was just so captivated by the joy that the college-age counselors had there. And I knew I wanted that, and I wanted what they had. And so on the last night of camp, I accepted Jesus Christ as my personal Lord and Savior. And it was amazing. And I felt so much joy and peace. And I went home and didn't tell anyone.
Good Catholic girl.
Yes. Yep. As a Catholic, I just had the sense like you don't do that. But the Lord was so good to me in that he used that as a spark. Really, I just started to desire to learn more about Scripture and learn more about my Catholic faith. Mm-hmm. So I think that unfortunately may be a rare story that an evangelical experience brought me deeper into my Catholic faith. And I praise God for that. I was a public school graduate, had a wonderful public school education, but really desired to learn more about my faith and was able to go to a Catholic college where I met Jim and was part of one of the first Focus Bible studies. And again, just the way that the Lord used that initial spark at summer camp was very beautiful.
Oh, I think when you said initial spark, I thought you were going to talk about our love story.
That's another podcast.
It's a different one. Although maybe one worth doing. Love at first sight. And then very clearly and then Jim has some work he needs to do. So we're going to wait for 3 years before they actually start to date.
Yeah. And you guys, you were obviously with Jim through his time with Focus and have had a lot of experience in the mission field. Through all of that too. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your day job.
Oh, okay. Well, in addition to being Jim's wife, we have 6 children, ages 4 up to 20. So we have 1 in college right now, 2 in high school, 2 in grade school, and 1 in preschool. And I have just really enjoyed that time being with them. It'll be interesting next year. Our youngest may be heading off to kindergarten. It'll open a new phase for me, but I've also appreciated some freelance writing over the years. Mm-hmm. I have my degree in journalism and theology and just enjoyed Catholic feature writing. So I do still get to do that on occasion, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, you had a long time ago, you were with the Catholic Voice kind of right out of college,
That's right? Right out of college. I came and I worked full time here in Omaha. It was my first home away from home, and for about 1.5 years, full time for the Catholic Voice. Mm-hmm. And now I do enjoy freelancing still for them.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So Kim, I'm excited to talk about this just because I know a lot of our listeners are kind of in this space. So tell me, what are some of the challenges that young mothers face in trying to grow and live their faith?
Well, it's kind of funny because I forget that I'm really not a young mother anymore. Again, I said I have a son in college, which makes it kind of hard to be young, but I am still a mother of young children.
Yeah.
And I do remember those early days. So it's a funny paradox when you're a mom because you often experience both a sense of isolation and a sense of never being left alone all at the same time. So I think that sense of isolation can almost make it harder for moms to connect even with each other. And then the busyness of life and of caring for your children. I've had college students over the years ask me like, what do you do all day? And I try to be really organized, but there are times where the honest answer is, I don't know.
That I sometimes get that answer too. It's like, hey, honey, how was your day? I don't know.
Yeah. So the isolation and yet never being alone. That sounds right to me. So what are some of the creative ways that you found to meet just the needs of young moms in particular? What has worked for you?
If you're a young mother now, I just want to tell you that I do remember what it feels like to have a desire to share your faith, but to maybe feel bound by constraints of caring for kids or caring for your home. Some of you may have a full-time job, which will add a whole nother dimension on top of that. So it probably sounds impossible or at least overwhelming to be able to evangelize. I
appreciate, Hun, you're saying that because I think there are a number of young moms who have a desire, like, okay, I want to grow in my faith and I want to help other people grow in my faith. But gosh, I have no margin. I have no opportunity. And I think, as you and I talk about this, like there's a conviction that I think we share that growing in your faith doesn't have to take you away from your family. That growing in your faith and sharing it with other people doesn't have to happen away from your family. Now, to be sure, there are some things that are just kind of hard to do with a toddler, but with a little bit of creativity, there's like that can totally be done, where we can actually find ways where young moms can grow in their faith and help other young moms grow in their faith. And they're not necessarily away from their family for, evenings and weekends and periods of time that just aren't really realistic. So we had some fun with this. We came up with 3 different kind of ideas that we want to share a little bit about today. One of them is called Mommy's Vacation Bible School. We'll talk more about it later, but it's basically just a time for moms to get together and learn in their faith while their kids are in vacation Bible school. So part of it is it just makes a space because the kids are already occupied. And, rather than having the moms just running errands during that time or doing something else, it's a chance for them to gather together and grow in their faith. The other one we did, which you really led the way on this, Hun, was just like doing Lectio Divina with a group of moms. Real simple. You use Live Lent Together to gather a group. That's just it's a noisy, I forget what's the ratio of moms to kids for your typical gathering?
Oh, like 8 moms to 25 kids.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Anyway, yeah. So that's like, that's fun. And then this isn't even so much maybe a way that we did, but maybe a blessing that we received, that there were a number of women who were in a different state in life. Maybe they were empty nesters or had had kids in school that really came alongside us and helped, kind of like St. Paul says, right, in Titus chapter 2, they like came alongside and helped you learn how to be a mom, learn how to be a wife, and really provided just kind of some respite in times where things were just overwhelming with little kids. Yeah, I remember we just recently, we'll probably talk more about it later, but we just recently had someone who was, just moved in kind of prayer to say like, hey, can I help? Can I provide a little space? And it's been such a gift. So we'll talk more about that a little bit later. Yeah.
I really want to dig into these. So I want to first, tell me more about, your Mommy's Vacation Bible School and what was involved in that and getting that started. And
Okay. Well, again, so this is your typical summer activity at your parish. If your parish is hosting a vacation Bible school for a week or totus tuus, we actually were blessed. Our parish had both going at the same time. So the 1st through 8th graders were busy at totus tuus, and the 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds were busy at vacation Bible school.
I feel really awful for your DRE.
Yeah.
Go on.
And then again, like Jim said before, instead of having the moms just drop their kids off and maybe go run errands for a few hours, because usually totus tuus runs from 8 to 3, vacation Bible school might run from 8 to noon. We invited the moms to stay from 8 to noon. Again, we're not trying to do anything during the nap time after lunch or feed anyone lunch, but from 8 to noon to stay and to receive formation for themselves and to really be able to feel like they were being poured into. And we tried to create an environment where they really did feel like they were being cared for. Like we tried to get really nice coffee and really nice snacks. And then we had the babysitting side. So again, for any kids that weren't quite old enough to be in vacation Bible school, I was actually the coordinator for the babysitting while Jim was providing the content for the moms.
But it was a lot. I mean, you recruited like all of those teenagers that needed service hours and some of the empty nesters and, got like the little facility kind of right next door and toys. And I mean, it was a lot to coordinate, but it was one of the key difference makers to making this work, which as a side note, I think that's a key difference maker to making anything work for a family ministry. So like, if you want to have a parish mission, if you want to have a retreat or something, like to have childcare available. I mean, this is part of what inspired, I think, Kim, you and I, that we're like, there'd be these great opportunities and we wanted to go, but we kind of look at each other. It's like, man, I don't know. Do we flip a coin? Like who gets to go? Because it doesn't feel like both of us can go. Because if both of us go, again, we didn't have parents that lived in town at the time. So for both of us to go meant trying to find a babysitter, getting pizza, paying for the babysitter, dropping $50, $60 on pizza, movie and a babysitter. And having childcare available is just a game changer for us to be able to be together. And if we're not together, I mean, not that there aren't appropriate times when, husbands and dads should be over here and moms over here and kids over here, but it was just something else that was pulling us apart as a family. And so when childcare is offered, it's actually this like, oh, wow, we could actually do this together. So that's a little bit of a tangent, but I think this was a key to Mommy's Vacation Bible School working. And I think it's a key. I mean, we started it in the parish in the hopes that it would continue as a ministry to help enable families for other events, other opportunities to be able to grow their faith.
Well, yeah, to me, it sounds like it's unifying because everyone's in the same place. Even if you're in different parts of it, everyone's at the church, right? Everyone's kind of living their faith at the church, growing in their faith, just maybe in different rooms at the church, which is very unifying and really beautiful.
You're receiving what they need for their particular age.
Yeah.
range.
Yeah.
And I mean, and we didn't get this far, but there's a great opportunity to integrate the content that the kids are getting and the content that the parents are getting so that it sparks kind of ongoing conversation and unity. We didn't get to be quite that sophisticated as we did it, but the opportunity for that is amazing.
Yeah. So childcare, I feel like, is one of the more difficult things to coordinate often at a parish. So Kim, how did you to do that?
Well, I think like Jim mentioned, I took advantage of the teenagers that need service hours for high schools or other things. And then also just really one-on-one, like personal invitation. I feel like, again, it's the key to asking almost any person to volunteer for anything. You can send an email out that there's a need and you will unlikely to get a response. So just really being at daily mass actually gave me a connection with a lot of the older women of the parish that they were there regularly and they thought my kids were really cute and they're growing and so it was just a chance to say, hey, here's what we're doing, and just explaining. And many times when I would explain what we were doing, they would just get very excited about it. They would I would love to help with that. And again, you have to find there's kind of that range of their they don't have children at home, but they're healthy enough. I mean, and that was kind of where the teenagers helped.
Because caring for toddlers is a physical challenge.
Yes, and that's kind of where the teenagers help. So some of the older women that maybe aren't able to bend over and pick up a 30-pound kid, they're there to provide that wisdom and that maturity, whereas then the teenagers can be down on the floor really like playing with the kids. So it was a nice combination.
And I might highlight that combination is also really helpful, not just for like, okay, somebody who's young and has energy to go chase a toddler around, but I mean, make sure that you follow the safe environment protocols so that you have enough people who are over 18 or over 19 here in Nebraska, like, legal adults, so you get the ratios right. But that combination can be really, really helpful. Again, young people who need service hours, and then adults, empty nesters who can come alongside and kind of help provide that space where moms can be free for a few hours.
And having this space, I think, again, facilities can be a challenge sometimes with something like this. It depends on the size of your parish and the size of your space. But having the childcare close enough to the room where the moms are that if you need mom, you can go get her.
Yeah.
But one year we actually had it in the room right next door. And I remember that being not working so well, being distracting. If you can hear someone crying or hear, so just trying to find that balance. And again, I think when as a mom, you're in this classroom setting, everyone there is totally okay with if the 18-month-old needs to come sit on mom's lap in class for half an hour.
Yep.
That is totally fine. Like, we're very fluid about it. So I know some moms might make you nervous or like, oh, my kids would never go to babysitting. Some, different temperaments of kids are different, but to be very flexible about it as well. And it can still totally work.
Yeah.
And it usually becomes pretty clear, oh, this is a group that's totally receptive to that, right? Because it's a group of young moms, so nobody's like surprised, it's like,
shut that kid up. No, I'm just kidding.
I would just point two things that maybe like that are really key if you want to pull this off and make it work. One is, there's a fair amount of facility coordination and there's a fair amount of coordination between individuals, right? So you're looking for a space for the moms to gather, for the kids to gather. And then of course, that's the same time as Vacation Bible School and or Totus Tuus happening. So this does require a fair amount of planning in advance so that the facilities are available. Summertime is usually when these things happen. And oftentimes that's when the facilities guy is really excited to get the floors waxed or get things painted. So planning ahead, making sure that the pastor, the head of Vacation Bible School, your DRE, like the facilities guy, like please don't leave them out. Like, so making sure that you talk to all the right people in advance is a key to making this work. And then I would say another thing, honey, that you highlighted is that personal invitation, not just for the people you're asking to serve, but for the people you're asking to come.
Yes, that was my next follow-up question is, how did you get people to come? Because I hear that a lot. We would love to get our parents more engaged, but how do we get them to come?
Yeah, we did a couple of things. So we did do like posters and flyers and bulletin announcements and pulpit announcements like after Mass. We did all of those things. The number one thing was personal invitation. And I would say giving people like a real why. And what I mean by that is like, hey, it's Mommy's Vacation Bible School. You should come. It'll be great. Just isn't enough to draw people away from their, oh my gosh, I will have 3.5 hours to get something done without a toddler, wrapped around my leg.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. So I mean, and that didn't always work, but our best appeal was, listen, this is like a really precious chance for you to do something for yourself, to connect with other moms and to connect with Jesus. And that usually, if you could deliver that message kind of eyeball to eyeball, it usually spoke to a pretty deeply felt need, right? I mean, Kim started at the beginning talking about like the loneliness and the isolation, and I'd love to grow in my faith, but I can't possibly wake up any earlier. And as soon as I sit down after the kids are in bed, if I sit down, I fall asleep immediately. That they're like, oh, there's no way I can grow. Usually there's a desire there. And if you can help them recognize this is a key moment where that desire for connection with the Lord and for others, like, could actually happen, that tends to cut through to-do list and special project, that is beginning to like fill that space while the kids are away.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes total sense. So tell me about some of the fruit. What happened? You made the personal invitations. You got the childcare. Who showed up?
We probably had about 15 to 20 moms. Am I exaggerating? 15
No,
moms
I think
that came the first year that we did it. And what was beautiful to me is there were the ones that I had personally invited, but then there were others that other people must have personally invited, because there were women there that I had never met, or maybe I had seen them across the church. We had a fairly big parish. And so I would say it was about half of the regulars. I'm like, oh yeah, I knew you would sign up. And then half of women that I had, again, never met. Yeah. And it was so beautiful to connect. And there were even a few that were brand new to the parish. This actually happened 2 different years that we did it, that they had just moved into the parish, and they were so grateful to have a way to immediately just jump in and connect and make friends.
Well, and I want to highlight that it surfaced the people who were not already the usual suspects.
Yep.
And for those of you who are like, well, I don't know, would we do anything for young families or young moms in our parish? Are there any young moms? Yes, there are young moms in your parish, but you probably don't know them because they're a young mom.
Yeah.
And they're, and they show up late to mass, because, somebody had an accident on the way in and they leave quickly, or they're in the cry room the whole time, and they don't have space or margin to show up at the other stuff you offer. And they don't have space and margin to volunteer, but they want to grow in their faith. So that's what's so beautiful about this, is it surfaces those people that are there and hungry and desirous. And they've been there the whole time. We just didn't have anything that actually fit them.
Anything that served them and their needs and right where they are.
Yeah. I would say for me, one of the things that I loved seeing the moms connect with each other. Like the friendships that were formed, like there were a number of really amazing people that we knew already, but they didn't necessarily know each other. And so watching them connect with each other, friendships being born, that was really, really fun. And because they were just spontaneous parties and play dates and all sorts of kind of like support for one another that developed. It really became, I think, that the seed of a support network for a lot of these moms.
Yeah. How many years did you run this for?
We did 2 years in a row.
2 years? Yep. Okay. Did you see any growth from the first to the second year?
Yes, in 2 ways. There were a few additional people that came the second year, with like new people that came in and other people that were invited.
Yeah.
But I would say the depth, one of the things, we can talk about content maybe in a little bit here, but one of the things we try to do is really tailor the content to young moms. And so they're like, okay, how can you pray if you don't have an hour of undistracted silence? Like, is it possible? Like, how do you pray as a young mom? How do you share your faith with your children? So we tried to really tailor content to topics that they were interested in. And you could see the difference between the first year and the second year, moms that had figured out a routine of prayer that actually worked for them in their life, and moms that had kind of figured out how to start to share their faith with their kids and developing little routines and devotionals. You could see that because they were kind of ready for the 2.0. Like, okay, so now that I'm doing this, now what? And I don't mean now that I'm doing this in terms of active, but like, wow, okay, so I'm like really sitting down every day and I'm praying with scripture and it's really beautiful and I can kind of hear the Lord talking. But next level question, how do I keep that like through the day? Like, how do I stay connected? I feel really connected with Jesus when I'm praying now. And it's just been this life-changing moment. But I feel like when I get done praying, I just run. And then I only reconnect with him again the next morning. Is there a way I could that I could stay connected with him all through the day? It's like, yes, there is. But that's a 2.0 question that came because of, I think, the fruit of what they learned and experienced together the first year.
That's awesome. You've mentioned just like the community that came out of this, right? And one of the things that you're trying to combat is that isolation that moms feel. And I mean, I've experienced this as my friends have had children. I see them less, and so much of the effort is required. I have to kind of invest myself into their life, and that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So anything else you want to say about Vacation Bible School?
Yeah, I would add 2 things. One, you could see a lot of these like these relationships and the women who kind of came and experienced this, many of them kind of went on to start other ministries or work together or play kind of key roles. The other thing, though, is it really it was kind of a foundation for the dads getting to know each other. So in the sense that like it was a foundation for more family-based ministry, but I think it served that way because moms are kind of the heart of the family. I mean, that's the way it works. I think in most families, moms are kind of the heart. And because of what they experienced, there was a desire, I think, that was reawakened that then helped. I mean, this is not going to shock anybody, right? That like the guys were able to follow suit when similar opportunities to grow in their faith came up for them. And so I think it really became a foundation for family ministry and a new way to look at family ministry, because family ministry wasn't even necessarily on people's radar screens. But they're like, oh, wow. Like people started, well, look at these new people that showed up, and this really kind of hit a felt need. It changed the way we approach some things. And in that way, it was a spark for many other things that at first you may not directly see the connection, but it really was.
Okay, so Vacation Bible School. You mentioned also that you gathered moms in small groups for prayer, and you lived Lent together, and you had Lectio groups. Can you tell me a little bit more about that, Kim?
Sure, I would love to. So again, this was kind of pre-Live Lent Together. Actually, this is before we moved to Omaha, and there were a couple of ladies that I knew just kind of as acquaintances, and we all happened to have the same spiritual director. I think that's how we got connected in the first place, because he was kind of planting these seeds of like, he was hearing us all say the same thing basically. And he's like, can't really tell everybody what everyone else is saying, but he knows we all need to meet. He's like, you guys need to get together. You guys need to pray together. And so we all kind of knew of one another. So my very first experience with what we called our Lectio group was 4 other women that really, we were all from different parishes. Some of us homeschooled, some of us sent kids to school. We had stay-at-home moms, we had a part-time nurse, kids of all ages. And that's one of the things I think is so beautiful about these small groups, is that you can have a diversity, but all have a common purpose, and that creates a friendship there that you don't all have to necessarily be of the same mold. So the way I remember it really getting started was one of my friends that I made in the cry room. I called her my cry room buddy, because we just happened to both go to daily mass fairly frequently. And really that's how we got to know each other. And I think she was a friend that on the surface, again, we had like very little in common. I was like the goody two shoes girl who had never strayed, and she was like the prodigal who was now coming back. And so I think if we had met under other circumstances, we would have mistrusted one another. But to be, again, like just sitting in that space where both of our kids were too crazy to be out in the church, it gave us that connection. And so we were kind of the ones, I think, that first got that group started inviting others. And I've just really experienced the power of opening the scriptures. The simplicity of a Lectio group is basically you just gather. We would open up our scriptures, which now would be on your phone, and read the Sunday gospel for the upcoming week. Read it slowly 3 times, pause for reflection, share as desired in between. And God really just spoke in powerful ways.
Yeah, man, there's so much I want to unpack here, but I'm going to try and keep it all together. But just noticing, the beauty of 2 women, you don't have everything in common, but the one thing you do have in common is a desire to grow in friendship and prayer, right? Which is kind of that fruit of a friendship. That's what a friendship is. A really good, holy friendship. Yeah. And I'm hearing like a spiritual director who's unpacking what the Holy Spirit's saying to all of you.
And connecting
in that way. So tell me, how long did that group meet for, and what was the fruit of that?
Yeah, it's funny that looking back, I'm forgetting exactly how many years, but I want to say it was at least 2 years that we met pretty much weekly. And the fruit, there was so many. For me personally, again, it was really a time of recognizing my own need for the Lord, like a reconversion experience for me, because I knew I was struggling in so many areas of my life, but I couldn't admit that to people. I couldn't, Jim was a focused missionary. I was a focused missionary wife. And I feel like I had to keep this image to the world. And this Lexio group broke through that. This particular friend that I mentioned that I met in the cry room, she was the catalyst like that the Lord used for that. I mean, at one point, I don't remember what gospel we were reading, but she just like kind of pounded her hand on the table and she's like, Kim, you are broken. And I just I was startled, but in parentheses, I mean, she didn't say it, but it was in parentheses, and I still love you.
Yeah.
And to be able to have a person who had experienced what everyone would consider extreme brokenness, to be able to look at me and to just love me in all of my weakness. It was really, it was a super powerful experience. And it really opened up the door for me to talk more about my struggles and to get help and to be vulnerable. Taught me how to be vulnerable.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That's just huge. I just think of so many, I would expect of our listeners as they're desiring to evangelize and to be on mission, that there's a place, because I know I experienced this too, where deep intimacy with another is really needed, because we don't really want to share our baggage with everyone, but it's still there. It's still there. And we need those friendships to break through them.
And I think with the women, I think because we all are experiencing that isolation, I would say it, not every meeting, but frequently someone is crying almost every meeting. And just to be able to,
not the kids, the moms.
Yeah, well, right. That's a whole nother dimension. Cause we met again because, of our schedules, we were able to meet in the morning. Everyone brings your kids again. So the kids are playing. You kind of get used to praying through a certain amount of noise. There's a race car going across the table right in front of your Bible. So yes, if not the moms and the kids, but to be able to just see the way it's moving. One other story I'd like to share from a group here. So then when we moved to Omaha, again, having the Live Lent Together structure has been very helpful, in having those Lectio Divina. Really, it's like a 6-week study that gives you the readings. There was a gal that had just recently moved from another country to my parish, and at the first meeting, she was in tears because she really missed the depth of her faith. So she grew up in Poland, and she grew up with a very deep sense of faith in the culture there. And she just said she was so afraid of moving to the United States. Then she was like, this is what I hoped I would find in the church. And there's a little part of me that wanted to be like, well, this isn't actually really what the church is like in the United States, but I'm glad you found it here in my home. And it was just very, very moving for her.
Yeah, but you were an experience of the church for her. So that is what the church is like, right? That's beautiful.
I have to jump in with this because I was blessed to watch this unfolding when we were in Lincoln, when it was first starting, the friendships, watching the fruit really that was born in Kim in your life and then our whole family. And kind of the nerd professional missionary in me, I learned a lot of lessons that showed up in the convictions that kind of guide Live Lent Together, right? So it's probably just worth acknowledging all my best ideas always come from Kim. But what I noticed was oh wow, this is Jesus is doing a really good job of facilitating the conversation between these women. And most small group materials at that point were really highly directive from the facilitator or the Bible study leader. And I also noticed it's wow, when you just let the word of God out, he really, not only does he connect people to each other, he really goes deep into people's hearts and minds. And again, that was in contrast to much of the materials at the time that were very catechetical, and they were not in not a bad way, but they were focused on developing people's intellect and their understanding of the faith. And it wasn't necessarily attending to the heart. And here I watched this study unfold. It's not even a study. It's this little Lectio group unfold. And I see the way the relationships are being built. I see the way people's hearts are really being changed. And then what totally blew me away is I saw the way it grew. Normally when a small group, if your parish has a small group that's been going, pre-Live Lent Together or any sort of thing like that, it's probably a group of people, God bless them, that have been together for, 5, 10, 20 years.
Yep.
And that's beautiful. But oftentimes, like, our groups stagnate and become a little bit insular, and they don't ever grow. And what I noticed about this group is these women would come together and they were having amazingly profound experiences. But just as quickly, well, I would say not just as quickly, there was this eventual conviction that, like, gosh, ladies, I love this, but I feel like I have to do this with I need to do this with my sister-in-law. I need to do with my, with other women in our parish, because there were people from different parishes.
Yeah.
And it started to grow and reproduce. And I realized, holy cow, like, this style of small group, which became kind of the Live Lent Together movement. This is like a key to really, like, transforming our parish cultures so that people can, again, encounter the Lord and experience community in a new way. And I just, it just was happening right next to me. I was thinking about these things and wrestling, and I just kind of, looked over. It's like, hey, wait a minute. That's exactly what we want to happen. Kim's already doing it.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. So you watched other groups kind of expand and start out of that.
Mm-hmm.
How many do you think? I mean, again, probably just out of 2 years.
There were a couple, like, I think there were like 2 or 3 that very organically just kind of went into other parishes. But then we really intentionally leaned into that in our parish. So we intentionally worked with the pastor. Okay, let's gather people, potential leaders. Let's give them a little pep talk. Let's help them recognize that, there's a power in the Word of God, and we highly recommend that. Our parish was one of those parishes where we'd give away the Matthew Kelly book at Christmas, and then people were supposed to kind of, read it during Lent or have a conversation. And so we would say, like, okay, like, if people just want to get together for the Matthew Kelly book, great. But if the conversation slows down and you have space to introduce Lectio over the Sunday gospel, go for it. And we prepared people. And that was just beginning to happen. But the group, I don't know, I think the parish had 20, 25 people that stepped forward to say, like, yeah, we'll totally do that.
That's awesome. That's incredible. So Kim, you also mentioned at the beginning, just kind of, Jim mentioned that third experience or kind of deep need was met through someone, or maybe multiple experiences of people stepping in and just accompanying you as a young mother. Say more about that, because I think we have some listeners who might be able to step in that space.
Yeah. I think there's, again, I might be heading to this state in life myself. Like, there's a stage where your children maybe don't need as much round the clock care. You find yourself with a little extra time. Perhaps you're an empty nester, but you're not quite a grandparent. Or perhaps you're a grandparent and your grandchildren don't live in town. We had the experience for a while where our parents did not live in town. And now we actually do. All 4 of our parents live in town, but they've had some health issues over the last few years and haven't been able to be as physically supportive. We've been so grateful. We've had one couple that, again, just kind of adopted us, really. And, just offering friendship. I think especially when there's a couple has that availability, like getting together with friends our own age, with kids with schedules just like ours, is almost impossible.
Oh, it's so hard.
But for a couple that's like, yeah, we're free all weekend. When does it work for you guys?
Yeah.
And they bring food and just bring kind of a new excitement for our kids. It gave also our kids other role models in the faith. I mean, that's a whole nother podcast too, of kids having multi-generational role models in the faith, and to be able to experience that, both of us being able to sit back a little bit and just relax, to be rejuvenated in our parenting, and to also have that friendship. And then in particular, I had a friend who just this last spring was praying and asking the Lord. She had some unexpected free time, and it was really just asking the Lord how he wanted her to spend that. And he brought my name to mind. And so she just called me up and asked, can I come over every week and play with your girls, and you can go have 3 hours to do whatever you want. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, am I going to say no to that? And it just was, again, such a blessing.
Well, and you weren't planning on this, but I think it's helpful for you to share, not that you didn't use it for an errand now and then, but it was so providential because, like you needed that time for extra prayer. There was a season in your life where the Lord was kind of doing some healing. And so, it was a combination of prayer and being able to talk with some people that it was an unexpected, very unexpected gift.
I mean, we really actually, Jim and I had just returned from a trip for our 20th anniversary, and we were kind of sharing together like some of the struggles that we had, or just feeling lonely and feeling like we needed more support. And I think my friend called like the next week. And I'm not embarrassed to admit, basically every week, I spent a portion of that time in therapy. So I went to see a counselor. I was just feeling like there's some stuff. And I think that's again a whole nother podcast of taking away the shame in that, that we have over the years done several sessions, individual and marriage counseling. And I just needed that time. And then I would go over to a church afterward and kind of process the session with Jesus. And it was, again, just a really incredible time, and the timing of it, right? It was clearly led by the Lord.
Yeah. Well, and it almost would not have been possible without that gift. I remember when you first told me, I think you took a picture of the text that you had gotten, and I started to weep because I recognized like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But again, the timing, the generosity, and I just, for those who are listening, Kim said it, but like, if your heart is aching, right, to be nearer of your children and your grandchildren, and you just want to kind of like, there's some, you're like, you feel like you have all of this love that doesn't have an outlet because the people who are so near and dear to your heart are far away. I guarantee there are people who can receive that love, who need just a little bit of TLC. And it was so simple. I mean, just there are multiple individuals, multiple couples that have played this role for us in our life. And there was nothing, they weren't coming in as these kind of guru mentors. They were just like, hey, here's some food. I'm bringing beer, or let's get pizza, come over. And they just kind of came over, inserted themselves in our lives because they had the flexibility to come meet us right where we were at. And just as we shared life and told stories about where they were at, they had been through seasons of parenting that we hadn't been through yet. And as they talked about just joys and sorrows and just experiences, that was such a gift for us and continues to be. So those of you who, if you have that gift of availability and there's someone who needs that, and let the Lord bring those people to mind.
Well, and I'd actually like to add, maybe for our younger audience, because I know myself at 36 and single. So when I was at Franciscan University for graduate school, Kimberly Hahn, Scott Hahn's wife, ran a ministry called Mother's Helpers. Yeah. And there was a commitment for 3 hours a week for a family. And the family's commitment was a family dinner. And so I for 2 years served a family. I went over every week for 3 hours, and the mom sometimes worked out, sometimes she ran errands, and I played with her kids, and then I ate dinner with the family, and it was lovely.
And talk about what a gift, right, for people who are still preparing for what they expect would be, a vocation as a wife and mother.
Discernment. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so I've, since that time, so just want to add this for any young people listening who are single and have that space. I never charge to babysit. That's my kind of gift to young families.
Ooh, I didn't know this. I'm sure you want to make this known.
How can people contact you?
And have a little less availability because I have a 6-year-old niece that gets a lot of that time.
Yeah, but you do. You totally do that.
Yeah, but just want to speak that for our younger audience that's also a space that the Lord may be asking of you. Well, okay, what would you guys say to someone listening who wants to take the first step in reaching out to young families, stay-at-home moms, particularly any moms themselves who are like, okay, I want to step into this space and reach other young moms. What would you say? What's the first step?
I mean, sounds silly, but not silly, but just pray. Start by really telling the Lord your desire, just pouring that out to him and being very honest and asking him to show you the next step. I think it's not complicated. I also think just don't overcomplicate it. Everything that we've shared here, the Mommy's Vacation Bible School, that's a bit more of a project. So but the Lectio group, especially just connecting with other moms. It's really, I think, keeping it as simple as possible. The simpler, the better.
Yeah. And we'll put in the show notes, but that's what Live Lent Together is designed to do. I mean, it came out of this experience, so that we'll put a link. It's just super easy materials. Everybody can have it on their phone, or you can print it off. And I mean, literally, all you need to do is make coffee and say, all right, everybody come here. Kids downstairs, mom's over here. And it's designed to facilitate that. It's just super easy. And it works. It's very powerful. And I would say, if, for those who are not a mom, if you're like I have a heart for young mothers, I would say, just pray and let the Lord bring someone to mind, because there's a young mom who's a little tired and a little stressed right now. And I mean, we talk about wanting to be a family-centered, pro-life church, on so much, a church of mercy, a church of unity. So much of what we aspire to can be achieved by a simple noticing and act of kindness to a young mom.
Well, thank you guys so much for sharing your story, your experience. I think it's gonna speak to a lot of people who are listening today. So just thank you so much.
Thank
Jody. You.
Thanks for coming, dear.
Happy to do it.
All right, everybody. If you know somebody who needs to hear this, please share it out. Moms, younger singles, or empty nesters, anybody who might have a call or something to offer in terms of themselves to come alongside young moms. Thanks, everybody.